The Russians have intensified their assaults. Since the beginning of the day, 48 of them have already been recorded. The most difficult situation is on the Slovyansk, Pokrovsk, Kostiantynivka and Huliaipol directions, where the fiercest fighting is taking place. The enemy also continues airstrikes on the Sumy border region. Meanwhile, in the Kramatorsk and Orikhiv directions, no assaults have been recorded. At the same time, in the Oleksandrivka area, the defense forces are conducting successful counter-offensive actions. There, the front line is held by the 79th Air Assault Brigade. The Mykolaiv paratroopers have completely cut off the occupiers' logistics. Now, supplies to the enemy's forward groups are only being attempted by drones here. The traditional Russian tactic of infiltration by small infantry groups has failed, and during the operation on this section, the 79th Brigade has eliminated about 1,000 occupiers, effectively destroying an entire enemy battalion. They are destroying the enemy's logistics and have taken control of one of the supply routes used by the occupiers near Donetsk. Artillerymen of the 147th Brigade of the 7th Air Assault Corps have shown how their HIMARS operate, nicknamed the Chimeras of the Front, or Hamsters, as the soldiers themselves call them. However, it was only recently that this American multiple launch rocket system began to be shown to journalists, and for the first time this was done in the Pokrovsk direction. So how does the HIMARS fire and what is needed to ensure the crew's safety? Our TSN correspondent Yulia Kyryienko will tell you more.
The modern drone warfare that dominates here in the Pokrovsk direction forces soldiers to be inventive so that the enemy doesn't see anything unnecessary. Right here in a huge hideout, the chimera of the front is concealed, the HIMARS. It is also called the last argument in battle. The vehicle is completely new, says its driver, Alexander. The HIMARS crew consists of 3 people. They received it just half a year ago.
Brand new, straight from the factory. When we got it, it had 58 miles on the odometer. About 90, I think.
Since then, it has been striking enemy fortifications and concentrations of equipment in places where Ukrainian drones can't reach or where a precise and powerful shot is needed.
It's like, as you already said, counter-battery warfare. Targeting enemy artillery. If our own guns can't reach, or if it's impossible to use a drone there, then accordingly the drone's effectiveness will also be lower. You can't always destroy a gun with a drone. A missile is more reliable.
And right now is the time for such a reliable shot, so the crew heads out to their positions. The HIMARS in the 147th Artillery Brigade of the Air Assault Forces, 7th Rapid Response Corps, has already destroyed dozens of enemy targets, which has significantly affected the effectiveness of the Russian offensive near Pokrovsk. Not in their favor. The HIMARS deployment to position was planned for a whole day. Not the artillerymen themselves, but the commanders at headquarters, after analyzing aerial reconnaissance data. Such careful planning is a requirement of war, because artillerymen have to work quickly. In such clear weather, the HIMARS is easily visible to enemy scouts from the sky, and one of them was just out hunting. We realize this when the HIMARS is almost set up to fire, so everyone hides in the thickets.
The target was spotted not far away. Maybe it will move away soon. We'll try again.
A few minutes later, they report, the sky is clear, the HIMARS returns to its position and finally launches a rocket toward the enemy. Even the ground in the field trembles from the rocket launch, but the HIMARS doesn't stop and sends another one toward the horizon. These shots are aimed at Russian artillery, and they are successful, reports the aerial reconnaissance, which monitors the hit targets with a drone.
We fired at an enemy artillery piece. Basically, 95% of our work is counter-battery combat. They've been damaged, the artillery pieces have been hit. So if there are still personnel there, that's even better.
Artillerymen say that a HIMARS strike, when coordinated with drones, has become almost 100% more accurate and effective. The technologies used by Ukrainian paratroopers at the front save missiles and make the work of the rocket system as precise as possible. And the fewer Russian guns there are at the front, the fewer shells are fired at our infantry, which continues to hold the outskirts of Pokrovsk. Yulia Kyryienko, Alexander Shian, Ole Mostovi, TSN 1+1, Marathon United News.
Active defense, the isolation of Crimea, and also the threat of a new offensive from Belarus. About the situation at the front, rotation, and also about the prospects for demobilization in the fall, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, spoke to 1+1 host Yevhen Plinsky right after this TSN broadcast at 9 p.m. Watch this major exclusive interview on our broadcast.
We know that Putin has tasked the Russian General Staff with calculating various options for launching an offensive operation, including from the territory of Belarus with the aim of capturing Kyiv.
The issue of rotation on the front line is always relevant.
When people end up there who have certain illnesses or are drug dependent, that's also a problem. You know, many of the questions you ask are very interesting. Yesterday, one relay transmitter was turned on. I think they won't turn them on anymore.
Because physically it won't work.
I can't tell you everything.
One of the cases currently unfolding and which we can't avoid discussing is the story surrounding the Scylla regiment.
You can't. The combat record of this regiment must not be distorted because of the actions of these individual criminals.
How realistic do you think it is that Russia would use nuclear weapons?
There's always something missing, and a lot of things. The list could be enormous, but we know what we have enough of. We have enough resilience. We have enough will and desire to win.
4 storage tanks were destroyed and another 9 were damaged. The General Staff clarified the consequences of yesterday's strike on the Slovyansk oil refinery. This is in Russia's Krasnodar region. And at night, the Defense Forces carried out precise strikes on 2 bridges at once in the occupied Zaporizhzhia and Crimea. These crossings, were used by the Russians to transfer personnel, weapons, and other equipment. The occupiers also had a sleepless night today in the Moscow region. There, Ukrainian drones once again struck the Dubna satellite communication center. This is more than 500 kilometers from the state border. Volodymyr Zelensky posted a video of the successful long-range strike on social media and reminded that this facility is critically important to the enemy for intelligence gathering and coordinating its occupation forces. This center was already targeted by our troops last week. Drones were flying directly over the Russian capital. Its mayor stated that the massive attack lasted until dawn, so they had to close the airports. There were also explosions in Yegorevsk, Tula, Ryazan, and Novorossiysk. They wanted to take Kyiv in 3 days, but ended up with 30 liters of gasoline per person. These are the limits that have been set at Gazprom Neft and Lukoil gas stations in Moscow and the Moscow region. The situation with diesel fuel is somewhat better. The limit for it is twice as high. At the same time, these gas stations do not sell fuel in canisters. A state of heightened alert due to the fuel crisis has already been introduced in 3 regions, Penza, Irkutsk, and Zabaikalsky Krai. Since last week, they have only been selling 15 liters of gasoline per car there. And you still have to be lucky to get it, because Russians are posting footage online showing hundreds of cars waiting in line for more than a day at a single gas station in the area. Meanwhile, in Crimea, instead of gasoline, people are being asked to have patience. It was with such an appeal that the peninsula's Gauleiter, Sergei Aksyonov, addressed the public today. He stated that there would be no large supplies of fuel in the near future, effectively contradicting Vladimir Putin, who just on Sunday promised an improvement in the situation and claimed that there was no fuel crisis in the country. Official restrictions on fuel sales are already in effect in more than 40 regions of Russia. And the Russian government is considering the possibility of returning to the use of Euro 2 standard gasoline and lifting restrictions on the import of such fuel. This was reported by the publication Kommersant, which reviewed the draft of the corresponding decree.